hunted or hunter, right? And this is the whole premise here. We're going to look at some of the best teams in college football, and we're going to figure out, are they the hunter or are they the hunted? Is everyone going after them, or are they going after everybody else? Caroline Fenton, when I say Texas, are they the hunter or are they hunted?
They're the hunted. And look, Arch Manning can say that all he wants, and that's probably the mentality that they should have in that locker room. That, look, we're the hunters, that we still have something left to prove. And yes, that's true, because Texas has yet to win a national championship under Steve Sarkisian, but they're the hunted. Texas will always be the hunted. Even when Texas hasn't been to back-to-back Final Fours, even when Texas doesn't have a quarterback with the last name of Manning, they are still the hunted. Even when Texas went through periods of mediocrity at the very best, they were still the hunted, because they are still the Texas Longhorns. They are still one of the most valuable brands, if not the most valuable brand in all of college sports. It is still Texas. Even when they're not very good, they are still the hunted, and especially when they are the number one team in the country and they have some of the best odds to win the national championship, and their quarterback's last name is Manning. Man, they've never been more hunted, at least since, the Vince Young years and the Mac Brown years at Texas. They've never been more hunted than they are right now.
I love the way you did your math. If we were in high school, like having to do our math exam, I love the way you did your math. Work. But you came to the wrong answer. You missed one important thing here. They are the hunter because Texas has not done anything. Like, the running joke when you cover college football is Texas back? In fact, I did a couple of interviews with different radio stations yesterday, and every single one of them asked me, is Texas back? Back to what? I mean, at some point, we have to look around at Texas and just be honest about who they are. My buddy Mike Golick Jr. always talks about the year that Notre Dame lost to Alabama in the national championship game. When they walked off the bus, they knew the game was lost. Why? Because there was just a swagger to Bama coming off the bus, and you looked around and you thought, man, I don't know how we beat that. There was an intimidation factor. While Texas is a national brand we care about, while they are one of the most talented football teams in the country, and they have a name at quarterback we all love, that's led to absolutely zero accomplishment that will have anybody else in college football intimidated. The question most people ask in college football isn't, is Texas back? They ask, when is Texas going to blow it? And until they do otherwise, I don't see any reason they could be hunted when, in fact, they are just hunting. Until Texas wins a natty, they will always be hunting the level of relevance that they think they have as a brand. Let's do this whole exercise as we get through let's go through some more teams in the top 10. All right, so over the course of the show, we're going to hit a bunch of teams. I want to go next to the number 2 team in all the land, because I think we both agree. At this point, Penn State, according to the AP poll, number 2 team, Penn State's got to be, at this point, the hunter, right? Like I just said, Texas hasn't won anything. Like, until you win the big game, James Franklin's going to be cursed by the fact that he hasn't won the big game. Like, there's no way anybody's hunting Penn State, right?
Well, they're the hunters, at least when we're talking about in the national conversation. Sure, if you're Minnesota or Michigan State, you are hunting Penn State. But in the grand scheme of the big boys and the national championship contenders, Penn State, I think, is probably the poster children for being the hunters, because that is the big gray cloud kind of hanging over James Franklin in this Penn State program, is the fact that they haven't won the big one. And that's not just the national championship, but they haven't been able to consistently beat Michigan and Ohio State and the powers that be in the Big Ten in the national conversation. Even last year, when they were in the college football playoff, sure, they were able to beat SMU and they were able to beat Boise State, but when it came to beating Notre Dame, they couldn't do it. So I think that Penn State will be the hunters until they can prove otherwise. But I also want to be fair to Penn State, that you and I both agree they're both the hunters. But from a Penn State fan perspective, what do they have to do to change that narrative? Is it national championship or bust? I just talked about how I think that Texas is the hunted. They haven't won a national championship in 2 decades. So if we're going to be fair here, should it be national championship or bust? Does Penn State have to beat Michigan and Ohio State in the regular season for us to change our perspective on them? Do they have to get to a national championship to change our perspective on them? Because I don't think it's necessarily fair to say, well, in order for Penn State to be the hunted rather than the hunter, they have to win a national championship, Fitzy.
I think they have to win a playoff game against a significant brand. And that, like, I know that sounds like such a cop-out, but let's be real. You and I talked about it last year. Beating Boise and SMU was just going to get them the love of, or like just the pressure of, yeah, but it's Boise and SMU. Who cares, right? Like, Unfortunately, I think the only way you change this narrative, you're right, some regular season wins could help. But if they get into a playoff matchup against another significant brand that's considered an equally dominant team and they get just ran out of the playoffs, then this narrative continues. I think James Franklin needs a significant win against a significant program in the college football playoff. We need to be talking about them in the national championship conversation for any of this to change. But I do also believe that at some level in college football, although I don't like it, I do think at some level you don't truly become hunted until you've won it all. Like Andy Staples pointed out to us on this show that until Harbaugh won it, he had that, well, he can't win it. Until Ryan Day won it, he had that, oh, I can't win it. Until Kirby Smart, right? Like, so James Franklin is just next in a long line of coaches that has to win it, and then immediately the entire team becomes hunted. What about the one of their Big Ten rivals? What about Ohio State? Is Ohio State hunted or the hunter?
They're the hunted. They're the reigning national champions. They're Ohio State. They're the hunted. Even pre-national championship, they were the hunted. To everyone not named Michigan. Look, that is the other gray cloud hanging over this program, that they literally just won a national championship in the first expanded college football playoff, and their road to getting there was tougher than anybody else's in the field. Yet we are still talking about, well, can't beat Michigan. Well, they won the national championship, and they beat the only undefeated team in all the land in Oregon, and they whooped that butt doing so, but couldn't beat Michigan. And that's not to say that we view this national championship with an asterisk. Of course not. That would be ridiculous. But that's still exactly what everybody is going to say, especially Ohio State fans, especially Michigan fans, is, well, couldn't beat Michigan. So they are the hunted, but they are still hunting the Wolverines.
Yeah, and that's why, to me, they're actually hunters, and they shouldn't be. Like, I can't do anything about Ohio State fans' mentalities. I've tried. I was talking to a radio station yesterday in Dayton, and the question was, how will we view this season as success if they can't beat Michigan? And I said, like, what the hell? You just won a national championship. What are we talking about? Like,
doesn't matter.
People tell me all the time, I don't get it. And let me be very clear. I understand the importance of your rivalry. I just don't care. Like, at some point, coaches are going to be hired and fired, and they put banners in the rafters based on championships, not based on beating your rival. Like, if the best argument you have is, well, we beat you last year in our rivalry game, but you didn't win a national championship, you're a little brother. That's what Michigan is right now, because they didn't win the national championship last year. They're a little brother. If you're an Auburn fan and you watch Alabama win the Natty, but you try and turn around and trash talk an Alabama fan because you won the Iron Bowl, it just shows that you got your sights on something too small. I understand that Ohio State fans don't want to hear it, but they are going to be hunters because Ohio State fans just can't relax. I don't remember ever seeing a fan base win a national championship and seem so unappreciative of what that moment means simply because they lost a game to Michigan. Understand that because of the changes in college football, the rivalries you care about so much have been devalued, and you can't change that. So you can either be get off my lawn guy complaining about your championship because it didn't include a win over Michigan, or you can just, I don't know, rejoice the fact that you are the defending national champions. Ohio State should be the most hunted team in the country because they are the defending champions. But instead, they're the hunters because their own fans can't stop, relax, appreciate a championship because they're so worried about a game that doesn't matter against a rival that we won't remember in 10 years. Most of the college football collective, in 10 years, they'll ask a trivia question of who won the championship last year. The answer will be Ohio State, and not a damn person outside of Ohio will say, yeah, but they didn't beat Michigan. Like, that's just the dumbest argument in college football. I'm sorry. Just
but that's what makes that rivalry. That's what makes that rivalry so great. That's why I think Ohio State and Michigan is the best rivalry in all of college sports, because that game means, I'm not going to say just as much, but means just a skosh less than a national championship. Can you believe that? A regular season game has just as much, just nearly as much weight as a championship, as a banner, as a ring, as the history books will be remembered until the end of time. That's how much that rivalry means. And you can say that Ohio State and Michigan fans are crazy for that, but it's not changing anytime soon. And that's what I think makes not just this rivalry, but college football so great, is because those regular season games matter so much. And a championship matters the most, period, point blank. There's no debating that. A championship is the most important thing. The second most important thing is beating Michigan.
Does a national championship actually matter more? Because I keep talking to Ohio State fans that want to remind me about Michigan, and I don't care. You know who cares about rivalry games? The people that have no shot at anything else. Like, if all you've got is your rivalry game, then you care a lot if you win it. For years, Vandy would do anything to beat Tennessee. And if they beat Tennessee, it was the biggest deal in the world. Why? Because they were Vandy. And that's what you do when you're small. If you're Michigan State, you desperately need to beat Michigan. Why? Because that's the only thing you can go to your fans and say, yeah, but we got it this year. Ohio State, programs like that, they got to do better and be better. They are about national championships. And I know people tell me constantly that I don't get it. I want to say it again. I understand it. Hell, I've been to these rivalry games. I've been on these campuses. I've been around all of it. I understand it. But I just think everybody has to change with the times. Let's get one more in real quick, too. Clemson, what do we think? Clemson, are they hunted or are they hunting?
They are hunted in the ACC because they are the powers that be. They're the kings of the ACC, that they have been the big guys in town in the ACC really for the better part of Dabo's time at the helm at Clemson. But they're hunters nationally. Because I think with Clemson, as far as they're concerned, we have two different conversations, right? I think that they are the best team, at least right now, from what we do know. I think they're the best team in the ACC. Miami, show me something differently. But they are the kings of the ACC. But I do not group Clemson in that same group of Texas and Ohio State and Penn State, some of the best teams right now nationally in college football. I would view Texas in a different light than I view Clemson. Now, if Clemson goes out and wallops LSU week 1, then obviously my mind is going to change. But from what we know right now, I view Clemson just a little bit lower. So I think they are the hunted in the ACC. They're the kings of the ACC. But nationally, I think Dabo still needs to prove that this game has not passed him by. Winning a national championship this year, at least getting to a national championship, beating LSU week 1, running the table for the better part of the regular season, will be Dabo's way of kind of dunking on everybody that thought that he was too old school, wasn't willing to embrace the transfer portal, that his approach to building a program and building a team is not antiquated. So they are hunted in the ACC, hunters nationally.
I love your argument, and actually you've got me thinking about it. But here's the one thing, because I agree with you, they're hunted in the ACC. I think they're still hunted nationally for now. I said earlier that, what does Penn State need? They need a win over a landmark program. If Penn State goes into the college football playoff and just absolutely smacks around Clemson, I think the street cred that they get from that, the media cred, the fan cred they get from that is still very, very real. So in my mind, there's still an element of hunted because of what the brand has meant to the last 10 years of college football. Now, I think a year, like if Clemson goes to the playoffs this year and they do get just shellacked, that changes all of it. But for right now, right on the edge, I'll still put them as hunted nationally, even though I agree with you that we are really close to that changing the tide. What about Georgia? Let's get Georgia in here. But Georgia, last time I checked, Georgia just feels like they are forgotten. We don't have to pay licensing for that. It was only one word. For Georgia, are they hunted or are they the hunter in this situation?
Like, why does it feel like they're the hunters? Like, why? I think that Georgia and the way that we collectively as a college football society feel about the Bulldogs is the perfect example of our short attention spans. It was not that long ago that Georgia won back-to-back national championships. Also, hello, everybody. They won the SEC last year. They beat Texas in the SEC championship game, and Texas is the number 1 team in all the land. And we're talking about Texas like they've got, they're on cruise control to the national championship game. Like, Georgia lost their starting quarterback and lost to Notre Dame in the college football playoff. That wasn't enough for us. That's enough for us to say, Georgia. We're not worried about them. Georgia. We're past that. Like, why is that kind of the mentality that we have about this team? Like, they are, in my opinion, they should be the hunted. They are Georgia. They are still big, bad Georgia. They are, in my opinion, still squarely in the conversation of having continuing their dynastic run. But for some reason, it feels like they're the hunter. And I don't think that's fair. But let me just say, that's exactly where Kirby wants him. That is exactly where Kirby wants the national perception to be about Georgia. Oh, we think they're the hunters? Perfect. Kirby doesn't have to manufacture any bulletin board material because it's already right there. And it is crazy that a program feels disrespected when they're the number 5 team in the country preseason. It's crazy, but that is the case. It feels like they are being disrespected a bit, Fitzy.
They should be hunted. They are hunting, and it's all because people love heroes and villains. And so for the last several years, we've made it Georgia versus Alabama. And now because Alabama has slid, it feels like in some ways Georgia has slid because of it. It makes no sense. I'm not banking against Georgia this year. I would not want to be hunting Georgia because you're right. The dogs are going to have some dog in them. All right. In your eyes, are the Fighting Irish hunting or are they the hunted?
I think they're still the hunters. Look, I understand that Notre Dame was just represented in the college football playoff and in the national championship game, but they fell short of it. So I think that creates this sense of hunger that is really unmatched, that losing in a championship game, having a championship in your grasp and then letting it go has to be one of the most devastating, but also motivating feelings in all of sports. So I think that they are the hunters. And I think that's exactly how Marcus Freeman, their head coach, wants them to be. That I feel like Marcus Freeman, similar to like a Kirby Smart or a Nick Saban, I'm not saying he is those guys, but it's the mentality of those guys that you never get too high or you're too low. You never let your head get too big because of what everybody else on the outside is saying about you. I admire Marcus Freeman so much and the way that he has been able to continue to build this program. That when Brian Kelly left Notre Dame, he said, well, I'm going to LSU because it's easier to win a national championship. And while neither of them have done that yet, Marcus Freeman has been in the college football playoff and Brian Kelly hasn't. Marcus Freeman has gotten his team to a national championship and Brian Kelly at LSU has not. So I think that they are still the hunters. I understand that Notre Dame is a massive brand. They're still the hunters because of becoming so close to a national championship, but falling short.
I love your logic on it. The only thing I'd say, and again, I want to qualify this for a second, Caroline. As you well know, and as everybody's finding out, I don't care who wins or loses. I don't have a favorite team. I don't root for or against anybody in college football, which makes it so easy to step back and just be some version of a nihilistic soup stirrer. Like all I want to do is just stir the soup, and I'm just going to use the word soup. So I like stirring everything up a little bit, and Notre Dame is one of the easiest things to do that with because, frankly, everybody has a big pro or con take on Notre Dame, and I don't share any of it. But when the whole world seems to want to flock to a take on something, that immediately to me means you're hunted. There is meaning to so many fans and football teams out there to just knock Notre Dame down a peg. The non-Notre Damers are out here saying they don't belong in the playoffs. All they do is get their butts kicked in national championships, so they shouldn't even be allowed to play in one. Like these anti-Notre Dame narratives that come out are hysterical to me. But then you've got the Notre Dame diehards who are absolutely on the other side of it. And so all I keep looking at is when you are so polarizing. And I think Notre Dame, as a general rule, because everybody is so either absolutely boiling hot or frozen cold on it, there's no lukewarm, which means you're hunted. Because at some point, if everybody wants to beat you just to put you in your place or just to show you don't belong or because you don't belong in a conference, like whatever the whiny opinion of the day about Notre Dame is, people have it. So as a result, I think you see other teams, other fan bases they get a little more amped up. When it's Notre Dame week, they get a little bit more excited. Like, should Miami really care about Notre Dame this weekend? No. Does Miami care about Notre Dame this weekend? Tremendously. Casual college football
fans. Why shouldn't Miami care about
Notre
Dame this weekend?
Well, I mean, they don't care about them as a rival. It's just a ranked on ranked game. But they don't get beating Notre Dame wouldn't be any more special than beating anybody else that's ranked. But it is because it's Notre Dame. Yeah. Miami fans are in here saying, I just want to take down Notre Dame because they're not in the conference. All of this just means it's a little extra motivation. And that's why they're hunted. And frankly, I think Notre Dame fans kind of love that. I think Notre Dame fans love sitting on the perch of you wish you were us even though like nobody really wishes they were Notre Dame fans. Like, so it's a wild logic.
It is quite literally. I mean, I understand it's Notre Dame, but it is also figuratively such a holier than thou mentality of, Notre Dame fans believe, well, you want to be us so badly. And I think the rest of college football is looking around like, not really, but there is that sign, that kind of putting Notre Dame up on a pedestal because they are Notre Dame. And that is a very realistic thing.
Yeah, it's also real that Rudy sucked. Okay, so let's go to the next thing. It sucked. Rudy just sucked.
It is so heartwarming. And I cry every single time. He achieved his biggest dream. He worked for it and he got it.
Oh,
sweet.
The eye roll, like, when you were little, your mom was like, if you make that face, you'll stay that way. If that was true, every time I see it, like, it would just be frozen, eyes up here, because like the eye roll every time they're putting the jersey. Coach, I'm not going to play if Rudy doesn't. Well, that's such just junk. Okay, let's go to the next team in the top 10 that doesn't involve Rudy. Thank God. Oregon. All right, so is Oregon hunted or the hunter?
They're the hunted. We had this conversation last hour about Georgia, and of course you can find that back at the Yahoo Sports YouTube page, that for some reason it feels like everybody has forgotten about the greatness of Georgia, that they feel like the hunters when really they should be the hunted. I think this exact same thing about Oregon. I think everyone's looking at that like everyone's forgotten about Oregon. Did everybody just all of a sudden forget that Oregon was the only undefeated team in the regular season last year? The only undefeated team when we had, the Clemsons, when we had the Ohio States, when we had the Georgias. Oregon was the one that was at the top of college football. Why have we all just forgotten about that? Have we all just forgotten about what Dan Lanning has built and is continuing to build at Oregon? Has everyone just forgot that they basically have a blank Nike check every single year and can pay whatever they want to every single 5-star across America, and they've done that? I understand that they lost a lot of pieces from that team that was in the college football playoff last year. I get it. I totally understand that. But I have all of the confidence in the world in Dan Lanning and in this program and so much of the talent that they've recruited. So they are the hunted. I know it doesn't feel that way, but I think that we should be talking about Oregon that way. They've deserved that benefit of the doubt, even if they've lost a whole heck of a lot of talent from this past season.
Well, and that's the reason that I think people are forgotten on it. But, like, let's not get it twisted. Oregon losing in the college football playoff was so shocking to everybody because of the matchup that they drew that they changed the entire seeding process. Like, they turned around. The college football world turned around and said, no, we can't have that again. Like, there's no way. Oregon was clearly one of the best teams in the country. And as such, they should be hunted. But the fact that they're not being hunted makes them the hunter. And you're right. Anybody that's watching this, if you don't know, they're dipped through the transfer portal this year. I mean, it feels like the entire team is wildly different than it was last year. Fine. Their head coach isn't. And I don't think we can pick and choose giving benefit of the doubt. Like, modern college football means that sometimes you're going to have to reload entirely overnight. That's what Oregon has had to do. But in Dan Lanning, I trust. Like, you have one of the best coaches, recruiters, talent evaluators in all of college football. So just like we spent years saying, well, Alabama's got to reload, but they're Alabama. Georgia's got to reload, but they're Georgia. I put Lanning in that same category. Oregon's got to reload, but they're Oregon. I think Oregon's going to be one of the surprises of the college football season because they've been so forgotten, because I trust their coaching staff so much, and because I do think they have a chip on their shoulder for the way last season ended, frankly, and for the fact that right now they are wildly forgotten. How can you dominate college football the way they did last year and then just forget about it? It's a reminder about what I said earlier. Mm-hmm. We are at a spot now where the only thing that's going to matter in the memory of the collective college football consciousness is the playoff. And because Oregon didn't win in the playoff, they must suck this year. I'm not buying that at all. So I think they're hunting with aggressiveness.
And I think Oregon has become the home of quarterback rehabilitation since Dan Lanning has taken over. Bo Nix, I mean, he was kind of the butt of every single joke in the SEC when he was at Auburn. I mean, it was Bo Nix throw picks. That was the joke. He comes over to Oregon. He was a Heisman Trophy finalist. Dylan Gabriel was essentially kicked out at Oklahoma. Brent Venables, their head coach, said, we're going with the young gun Jackson Arnold, this 5-star recruit. we don't need you anymore. So Dillon Gabriel went to Oregon. He was a Heisman Trophy finalist. Dante Moore is taking over as their starting quarterback this season. Now, he was at UCLA. It wasn't great, but he had a year to sit behind Dillon Gabriel, to learn this offense, to learn by osmosis from Dillon Gabriel. So I expect Dante Moore to just be that next guy, that next quarterback at Oregon. I don't think we talk enough about the quarterback position, how it's developed at Oregon since Dan Lanning's taken over. But I do want to go on to, that was number 7. Number 8. Now, this is always going to be a spicy topic. Number 8, Alabama, hunter or hunted, Fitz, in your opinion?
Alabama is still hunted. And here's the thing. Like, I was a fat kid that played dodgeball, right? And so when I was a fat kid that played dodgeball in 5th grade, a lot of times I just got out on the dodgeball court and immediately got pegged in the face repeatedly, over and over and over, by kids that were far more athletic than I was and in better shape. I am now at this stage in my life, I am no longer the fat kid. I'm the one in good shape. And most of the people that were throwing those dodgeballs at me, they're now the fat kids, right? So if we went down today and we all decided we were going to have a reunion dodgeball game, I would pick up every ball and I would just be flinging them over and over and over again. That's what the college football world wants to do to Alabama. When you have watched the dominance, they were the bully beating up on fat kids for years. I think Alabama is still a very good football team, but I don't think that they're what they were, and that's not a hot take. You lose the greatest coach of all time, arguably, in college football, you are going to have a mini setback in the process. Alabama's still great. They're just not unbeatable. So now everybody else is still bringing that A game like Alabama is who they were under Nick Saban. Again, I don't think they are. And on top of that, everybody brings that extra spice of knowing, man, you spent a decade beating me up, and now it's my time to beat up the bully. At the end of the day, no matter how Alabama could win 4 football games this year. I don't think they will, but they could win 4 football games. And every single team they play this season will still be hunting them because they want revenge for watching them get their asses kicked for a generation. So because everybody's still bitter about getting hit in the face like a fat kid in dodgeball, they are still hunting Alabama, even though Alabama is not who they once were.
Oh, they're the hunters. They used to be the hunted, but now welcome to the rest of us, Alabama. You are hunters just like everybody else. And I think above all else, because look, I fully expect Alabama to be a college football playoff contender this year. I think that Alabama has a top 5 roster. Their quarterback, Ty Simpson, is a question mark, but Kalen DeBoer is a quarterback whisperer, and he made an intentional decision to not go into the transfer portal and get another starting quarterback. That shows his belief in Ty Simpson. So ex post facto, that shows my belief in Ty Simpson because I believe in Kalen DeBoer. He has won everywhere he has gone. I don't think that this, habit of losing to Oklahoma and Vanderbilt is going to be a trend at Alabama. Even Nick Saban had a rough first year at Alabama. But I think that above all else, I think they're going to be a good team. They're still hunting the shadow that's cast over them that's in the shape and the size of Nick Saban. Like, Kalen DeBoer is still hunting the fact that he deserves to be the guy after the guy. Alabama is still hunting what they were under Nick Saban. I don't think it's possible to achieve the kind of success and the kind of dynastic success that Nick Saban had at Alabama. I don't think that's possible in present day college football and with the transfer portal and with NIL, but they're still going to be hunting that. Alabama no longer is viewed as the kings of the SEC. It is Texas and it is Georgia. And Alabama has clumped in the same kind of tier as Texas A&M, as LSU, as South Carolina, this season at least, in terms of who we view as legitimate playoff contenders. Alabama is lumped in that kind of second tier of the SEC. It is not anymore Alabama and everybody else. They're still chasing that. So for that reason, they're hunters.
I love the fact that you worked in expo facto. I think I wrote that down right. That was well done.